Today we will talk about English class 5th book, and I will introduce the book. Today we will talk about the first lesson, Gulliver in Lilliput. So what this lesson is about, we will talk about it and I'll explain the whole lesson, Gulliver in Lilliput. So what is this lesson about? This is a famous novel. This is a famous novel written by Jonathan Swift, and the novel name is Gulliver's Travel. So this is a small piece taken from that novel, and novel name is Gulliver's Travel. So what is this novel about? We'll talk about it. So in this novel, Gulliver's Travel describes the adventure of its hero, and your hero's name is Gulliver. So he loves to travel, and this is a famous novel written by Jonathan Swift. Gulliver's Travel describes the adventure of its hero Gulliver. He loves to travel. Once he was on a journey to the South Sea island in the Pacific Ocean. Suddenly his ship crashed and he landed on the land of Lilliput. So Lilliput, what was this land about? We will come to know about it. So now Gulliver is telling the story in this book. So I slept very well for several hours. When I woke up, I tried to get onto my feet, but I could not move. So when the ship crashed, he landed on some kind of a land, but he was so tired and sleepy that he immediately fell asleep. When he woke up, he found himself tied to the ground. He could not move a muscle, and he felt like 10 pieces of string across my body from my neck down to the top of my legs. He felt himself tied to the ground by his feet, by his arms, and by his long thick hair. The only part of his body he could move was his eyes, and he could hear a noise about me, and he could hear the noise about himself, that everyone, the people who were surrounding him, was talking about Gulliver. He was talking about him, and he could hear it. Many things were moving about. I could see them. After a while, I felt something on my left leg, and it was alive, and it moved gently over my body towards my chin. Now he does not know that what is moving on his body, but he could feel the creeping and the crawling on his body. Suddenly now he saw in front of me, standing on my body, a very, very small man. But suddenly, at first he could not see that what is crawling on his body, but suddenly he saw a very small man standing in front of him. He was only 6 inches tall, and the man was so tiny, it was 6 inches tall. He held a bow and arrow, and that person, the small tiny man, the mini person, even held a bow and arrow as well. Then he felt about 40 more little people climbing over me, and then he felt that more tiny people, 40 people, the tiny people, were crawling on his body. He could not believe it. I was so surprised that I shouted very loudly, and all the little people ran away in fright. And he could not believe that what he is seeing, and he was so frightened, and he was scared like any normal person would be scared to see like small tiny people. So it was a natural reaction, and he started screaming. When he screamed, so all the small people, they also got scared, and they scattered around. But they returned soon, one of them came very close and called out in a high, clear voice. But I could not understand his language. So when they got scattered, but they came after a while, and one of them, maybe it was a leader, maybe it was was the person, the small person who shouted very loudly. It was the leader. So that person came very close to Gulliver, and he shouted very loudly, but Gulliver obviously could not understand because he was in a foreign land. Lying there made me feel very uncomfortable. I tried to free myself by breaking some of the string which had been tied to stakes in the ground. Stakes mean small pieces of wood set in the ground. So while he was helpless lying there tied to the ground, so of course he was gonna feel very uncomfortable. He tried to free himself, but he was tied so strongly to the ground. And he pushed and pulled his body to a little bit free himself, and he managed to free his left arm and tried to pull hard on the left side of my head, and it was painful, but I successfully losing some more sticks, and he managed to loosen some sticks and some strings around his body. Now he was able to turn his head around 2 inches. So I was doing this, the little people ran away. I heard someone shout an order, and all at once about 100 arrows shot through the air at me. So while he was doing the moving and he was struggling to free himself, so all at once, as the tiny people got alarmed, and they shot 100 of arrows through his body, and so those landed on his face and hand felt like sharp needles, and those arrows landed on him, on his body and his face and all the whole body. But those small arrows, as of course they were tiny people, they were 6 inches tall people, so of course their arrows gonna be like a needle, and it would be like the prick of the needle. So he felt like the sharp needles pricked his body. I shouted with pain. I covered my face with my left hand and tried to break all the strings. It doesn't hurt him, the small needles, but still it was a break of needles. So he tried to break all the strings. I wanted to get free, but the little man shoot more arrows, and he struggled more, and he tried to free himself more, his body, but the arrows shot, but there were more arrows coming from the little people. Some tried to push their spears onto me. Spears are the sharp sticks, so some of the small men tried to push him or prick him with their spears. Luckily, my jacket was made of strong cloth, and their spears were not sharp enough to go through that. But luckily, he was wearing a very thick leather jacket, so luckily he didn't got hurt that much as he would be, as he was supposed to be. As the small men were trying to harm him, but luckily he got saved by his jacket. He decided to stay still. When the little people saw me lying still, they stopped shooting. And he had this idea to stay still so they would stop shooting him, and it worked. Then they built a little platform. Its top was about 18 inches from the ground, and so they tried to communicate with him as they were very tiny people, and he was a giant person. Not giant person, but a normal person. But for them, it was Gulliver was a giant person, a giant. So they built an 18 inches platform from the ground. One of the little men began to speak, but I could not understand anything that he said. So one of them tried to communicate with him and talk to him that what is going on and who are you, as for them it was he was a foreign person, and he was in a very big size for them. So they tried to communicate with him, but they could not understand. But Gulliver could not understand what he is saying, what they are saying, what they are trying to communicate with him. I was in pain because I was so hot, and he was so hot, and he was in pain as well. Of course, he was tied to the ground first. His ship got crashed, and he swam to the shore, and he was hungry, and he was feeling hot as well, and the pricking of those arrows also was hurting him. So He was in a very uncomfortable condition. He opened his mouth and pointed to it because I was hungry. He understood, and he tried to communicate with the sign language. He tried to point toward his mouth to tell them, to communicate with them that I am feeling hungry, and it worked. They understood what he is trying to communicate with, to say to them. He ordered some people to place ladder against my side, and this they did, and this they did at once. More than 100 men climbed the ladder carrying, and so the people they built a platform, 18 inches platform, and now they got the Gulliver's message. So they put ladder on each side of him, and the 100 of men climbed the ladder carrying a basket of bread and meat, and they gave him meat and bread. Their loaves of bread were so small that I ate 3 of them at once, and their loaves of bread means the whole bread. They were so small that he could eat 3 at them at a time. The little people were pleased because I had eaten their food, but when I wanted to be free, they made it clear that I could have food but not my freedom. So they gave him food because he was feeling hungry, they were the little people, the tiny men. They were pleased. They were glad that the Gulliver ate their food. But when he talked about and when he gave little bit hint about his freedom, they made it clear that he could have their food but not his freedom. So this is an extract means this is a very small part taken from the novel. If you want to read more about it, what happened to the Gulliver, you can buy a novel, as this is the perfect timing to read the novel, to finish it. So what happened in the novel, and you can even watch the movie as well, the Gulliver's one. So I hope you understood it. Thank you so much.